Good afternoon and welcome to the August 2nd El Paso County Commissioner Redistricting Commission meeting. I am Cammie Bremer and chair of the commission and a commissioner for Commissioner District 5. As you know, the primary purpose of this meeting is to allow staff to present any updates they have and for this commission to provide staff with any direction and additional guidance. As we approach the deadline for designating final maps on August 8th, these last few meetings will be pretty critical for us to make any specific tweaks or changes to the maps that are still in consideration. So with that, we would like to make sure we come up with some viable options in which to move forward again from meeting to meeting. In that spirit, we respectfully ask that comments during the public comment period be geared towards what specific changes that members of the public would like to see in existing maps that are still in consideration. As a reminder, members of this audience must refrain from any actions or demonstrations in this hall that are disruptive to the proceedings. To begin, I'd like to start with any other comments by my fellow Redistricting Commission members. Are there any comments? Commissioner Williams.
I apologize. I did bring too many notes today.
Does anyone else have any comments while she's... General comments? Yes, sir. Commissioner Gonzalez.
Oh, you can go ahead. That's fine.
Hi, thank you, Madam Chair. I wanted to just start off. I really appreciate all the support efforts by the community coming forward. I do have to comment on one thing, and I did very much appreciate the research and if a letter signed or dated July 31st by a varied group of participants, including the Latina Equity Foundation, ACLU, League of Women Voters, Colorado Latinos Vote, NAACP Colorado Springs, Colorado, Montana, Wyoming State Conference, NAACP, and Citizens Project. I think your efforts are worthwhile, and I think you're trying to do the right thing. But I think some of the information included in some of this, it continues to be, I'll be honest, insulting to somebody like me. When it talks about the end result is unsurprising. In election after election, the candidate preferred by the county's non-white voters loses, and the county commission fails to reflect the vibrant diversity of its population. The exclusion of minority preferred candidates from the county commission reflects racially polarized voting in the county and a continuing legacy of racial exclusion. The black and brown population in the county has grown, but that growth is still not yet reflected in the county's representation. There's other similar information in this. Let me be very clear. My first 2 years as a county commissioner, I worked side by side by an African-American, Daryl Glenn. I am Hispanic. Commissioner Lojinos Gonzalez should probably tell anybody who's writing this kind of stuff a little bit about my ethnic background and the hard work I've done for Southeast Colorado Springs. Please be respectful. I get it. I have asked that Southeast Colorado Springs get more unified in this redistricting process, and we've listened, and this board is moving towards that. I just ask that people out there be honest before they submit stuff like this that insults a Hispanic man who's doing the best he can for our community and your community. Thank you.
Commissioner Williams.
Yes, thank you. At the last redistricting meeting, there was some discussion of text messages at the very end of the meeting. I discovered after an audience member brought it to my attention that 2 people from the audience had sent unsolicited text messages to my personal phone. One of these was from Lois Landgraf and one from Sharon Thompson, both of whom were in attendance on July 27. I'm aware of my statutory obligations and did not respond to the text messages. Both messages have been uploaded to the redistricting website under July 27 additional archived materials. I have not received any other text messages and have not communicated with anyone about redistricting plan development outside of public meetings other than my attorney. Thank you.
Any further comments from commission members? Commissioner Vanderwerf.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate the comments of my colleagues here just a few minutes ago, and I would like to support Commissioner Gonzalez's comments. Anybody that submits information, comments like that is insulting people on this board, and it insults me as well. Shame on you for doing that. You know, Commissioner Gonzalez and I came on this board at the same time. And at that time, we had a Hispanic, Commissioner Gonzalez, a black man, Commissioner Glenn, and two women. And, and one woman, Commissioner Littleton. And for anybody to say that we don't have race diversity from time to time here, it's just a matter of who votes for who. People get the vote for who they think is the best person. But to say that kind of thing, it's just not acceptable. So I support Commissioner Gonzalez's comments, and I will continue to defend those. I think he's doing a great job in the Southeast, and I can tell you that he is always open. If you have an issue or a problem, call him. Talk to him. He'll respond. Thank you.
Commissioner Geithner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I too offer support to Commissioner Gonzalez, and I think that this hints to some of the comments that I made several meetings ago, and I'm going to say them again. The reality is that when we are cynical, we become less productive. And I do believe that we have veered off into that territory. So I would ask that today we keep our comments respectful, and certainly as the chair indicated, we need specifics to do with maps, not a lot of rhetoric. It is just the way it always is going to happen in any redistricting process that we have partisan people who have agendas of various different types. And we are going to see that in comments. We are going to see those things that are submitted, and it is this body's job to sort through them all and look out for the criteria in the law. That's what we're here to deal with, the criteria in the law for redistricting. And so this is not about wants and desires and political agendas. This is about meeting the criteria and coming up with a set of maps that meets that. So I would please echo what the chair said. Let's keep our comments to actually creating something that is productive instead of separate political agendas and desires that are outside of what that criteria is. Thank you.
Thank you. And in reference to specific criteria, you will find on the back table today, per my request from the last meeting, there is redistricting commission criteria straight from the statute. So hopefully you will have that to keep in mind today, and that is exactly what we are utilizing to make these difficult decisions. Thank you to Commissioner Williams for her disclosures. Again, we're conscientious and cautious about ensuring that we are following all the requirements on having this be a transparent process. I think the results that we've been narrowed down to up to this point, 4 proposed maps in front of you and on the back, and analyzed in the book, plus a potential one that is still forthcoming. I think that these are doing a good job of honing in on taking in all that commentary and putting it into something subjective that we can all work forward with. So with that, are there any other comments from the commission members? Okay, item number 2.
Item number 2, upcoming meetings, recommendations, and general updates. Ryan Parcell, Executive Director, Government Affairs.
All right. Hello, everybody. I think this will be pretty quick today. Sorry, one second here. Let's get the right presentation up. There we go. As we get closer to the end, these updates will be shorter and shorter. So can finally fit all of our next redistricting dates onto one screen. So the next meeting will be Friday, August 4th at 9 a.m. Then we've got August 8th and 15th. I just realized that August 4th says 2020. I don't know what I was thinking when I wrote that, but I apologize for that. So note the correction there. For our deadline status, we've been making good progress, staying on time here with all of our deadlines. Again, the only other thing that I'd say that we may want to consider changing at some point is the August 11th deadline, which is the last day for written public comments to be made through the website. I actually feel pretty confident that we could move that to the morning of August 15th or up until about the time of the start of the August 15th meeting and still have those compiled so you guys could see them. And then last time we talked about the new commission direction form. I won't spend a lot of time on that unless there's any questions from members of the commission. But I have the slides I covered last time should you want me to go over those.
Does anyone need a review of the previous slides on this? Okay,
All right, then that's all I have. Thank you.
thank you. Commissioner Van der Werf.
Yes,
question.
thank you, Madam Chair. Well, it may be for either for either for Ryan or for Steve, but so I do see, right, we have these new maps, map 1 through map 4, and then we have what looks like a summary sheet trying to put all of the relevant data together, which is awesome. But the problem is in doing my review and getting ready for the meeting, I was considering map 7 and map 8 and map 10 and so forth and so on. So now I don't know how they correlate to these maps 1 through 4, because the previous direction from the board, the meeting that I was not present at, was if you look at item number 1, I think it was a modification of map 8. So that's been redesignated apparently under a new number. So which of these maps is a modified map 8? That's map 1? Okay. And then it was this done in order then? So item number 2, the Zukas V1 and the Waller-Martinez map is map 2?
Correct. So Commissioner, if
Okay.
you sit there and you take a look at the table on the maps that are provided, there's a summary of where this came from. So in the right above precinct moves, so the final map 1. So as we're moving forward with these maps, we went ahead and said, all right, we're going to go ahead and rename these final map 1, final map 2, and moving forward. But final map 1 is based on map 8. Precinct moves came from Commissioner Geithner's commission direction form, and precinct 445 moved to District 1 to adjust population deviation, and we'll go over that. We also
Okay.
have a summary on final map 2, which was the combination of publicly submitted maps from Zukas and Waller-Martinez map. And we included those changes in that summary. Final map 3 was map 10 with all 30 southeast precincts together. And then final map 4, as you see there, it was based on map 4, adding precincts 615, 190, and 169 to District 5.
Okay, so just to make sure I understand it, map 1 is the modified map 8, and we'll use the new designations from now on, 1, 2, 3, 4, and so forth. Okay.
Absolutely.
And map 2 is the Zukas V1 Waller-Martinez map.
Yep.
Map 3 is map 10, and map 4, lucky map, gets to retain its original name.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Sorry for the confusion, Commissioner.
And then one other thing, since we're down and certainly down in the home stretch, it does make sense in my mind, and I would imagine others feel the same, to be doing, taking these maps, contemplating them further, possibly combining them, possibly doing variants or so forth off of the maps. because one of the challenges that I had in trying to get ready for this meeting was actually spending a lot of time correlating map numbers. So is there a way to get onto the Esri tool, because I'm using that tool and tinkering around, moving precincts back and forth between districts and seeing what that does? Is there a way that we can have on the Esri tool something called Map 1 and Map 2, Map 3, Map 4, and then the fifth one is the Vanderwerf map, so that so we can have those names designated, so that I'll use those in reference, and going forward, I don't know where we'll end up today, but in going forward, we'll have the same reference on the Esri tool that we have in this meeting, so that we can do these variations off these maps going forward.
Absolutely. I just got a thumbs up from Carl. Carl,
Okay.
are we able to make that change today? Yep.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Madam
Item
Chair.
number 3.
Item number 3, update on the creation of maps based on previous commission direction. Steve Schleicher, El Paso County Clerk and Recorder.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I believe, does anybody need to have the QR code up there for a little longer? Is everybody good? Okay. So based on your direction from July 27th, the maps to be drawn and analyzed was the original Geithner-Bremer map, which was map 8. And as I just prefaced, including changes from the commission direction form submitted on July 27th. We were also directed to combine Zucas version 1 and the Waller-Martinez map. We were also directed to, on map 10, include precinct 169 moving into Commissioner District 5. On map 4, including precincts 169, 190, 615 moved to Commissioner District 5. And then you all decided to carry over map 7, which was Commissioner Vanderwerf's map from the July 6th meeting that he submitted. So as we're sitting here taking a look at the original Geithner and Bremer map, so it is now called the final proposed map 1 as we move forward. If there's any changes to the final proposed map 1, we're going to keep that name, and we're just going to go ahead and italics with versions. So change 1, including changes from the commission direction form that was submitted. We also did another change. Change 2 was the original deviation was 5.63%. So we moved precinct 445 from District 2 to District 1, and the deviation is now within the variance. So the deviation is now 4.93%. As you will note here is we removed a criteria, and that was a criteria of having District 5, the eastern boundary being Powers Boulevard. And based on the comments at our last meeting that was no longer a criteria. So, but we are still sticking with the southeast 30 suggested precincts as a criteria, and Fountain Fort Carson, Security, Whitefield, Hanover together. So on this map, the final proposed map 1, are the 30 suggested precincts consolidated into one district? They are not. And as Fountain Fort Carson, Security, Whitefield, Hanover together, they are not. Here is a PDF of that map. And there's also copies up there. And it's also online for everybody to take a look at.
Sorry, I just have a question on this. This came up last time that all of those 30 precincts were not in there. I'm confused because the map that I gave did have all 30 precincts in. So that's a little bit of a concern to me of where the breakdown happened in that.
Okay.
I understand that, everything needs to happen in this public meeting. So if we need to have that for Friday, but I'm trying to understand, because I also gave you the freedom to move things around to make things work, but I believe that I was very specific about getting those 30 in. So if we could, if it's just on Friday or whatever, have that conversation and tell me where that deviation happened, because the intent was to have all 30 of those in there.
Okay.
And somehow, somewhere in this process of direction and the complicated nature of how we must do this here in this session, I think that was lost. So I do, but I can't, I can go through after today and certainly look for it and try to compare the direction originally given.
Yep.
But it would probably be easier for you to tell me, and certainly that would be helpful to me to try and figure out where I would like to go next, so thank you.
Absolutely, Commissioner. In fact, probably in the next couple slides, I'll show that breakdown of those 30 precincts. So based on the final proposed map 1 here, we are within the deviation. Total precincts moved were 73, so 22.6%. Total affected population, 25.03%, and total affected active voters was 21.41%. Here is by each district the target deviation, which is something we have all become accustomed to. Where on this map we are building up District 3, District 5 to allow for growth in Districts 1, 2, and 4. Here's a breakdown of the precinct moves, what the precincts were added per district. And precincts deleted and what the impact was on each district. So the first criteria, looking at population equality and the Voter Right Act. So here we're looking at the total population. Here is the breakdown. When we're sitting here taking a look, we're seeing a decrease in District 3 of 3.34% white Caucasian. In District 4, we're seeing an increase of 4.66% Hispanic or Latino, and a decrease in District 4 of 5.24% white Caucasian. And then in District 5, we're seeing a decrease of 5.04% Hispanic or Latino, and an increase of 7.91% white Caucasian. So as we're sitting here looking at the second criteria, which is communities of interest and compactness. So as you can see here, as we did the last meeting, is the communities of interest, but breaking down by cities and towns, and also our military installations. Our school districts, all 17 of them are lined up there, where each district lies within each commissioner district. And here are the precinct moves, Commissioner, that we were just talking about. So there are 5 commissioner districts, or excuse me, 5 precincts that are not within District 4, and that is 169, 180, and 190, which are currently in Commissioner District 5, and then 601, 605 are in Commissioner District 3, and that is right along I-25. So based on your direction today, if the intent is to move forward and put those 5 precincts into District 4, then we will sit there and work with the population to do that. The third criteria, political competitiveness.
If I have a question on that.
Commissioner Vanderwerf.
Yes, thank you. Thanks for going back to that. Just to refresh my memory. So from public input, there were, I think, as you recall, 30 precincts identified and defined as Southeast. I just want to make sure I understand this. These 5 that are highlighted in yellow, are they part of that group of 30? Is that why we're highlighting them here?
That is correct. So these 5, so it was 30 precincts that were brought forward by Senator Exum. Mm-hmm. And that is what we've been going with for the last several meetings. But it is part, these 5 precincts right here, Commissioner, are part of that 30 that were introduced.
Okay. So we have 25 of the 30.
Correct.
In 4, but not 30 of the 30.
Yep.
On this map.
Correct.
Okay, thanks.
So as we see here in the third criteria with political competitiveness, here for U.S. President, the deviation from current, where you could definitely see a significant increase of 11.58% in District 4 going towards the Republicans, or the Democrats, excuse me. Here's the breakdown. Here is U.S. Senate. Colorado Governor. Secretary of State. El Paso County Clerk and Recorder. And lastly, El Paso County Sheriff. As you can see here on this slide, here is the average deviation of all the races. So in District 1, we are seeing a 27.83% Republican, District 2, 26.28% Republican, District 3, 5.17% Republican, District 4, 2.63% Democrat, and District 5, 1.54% Democrat. So the average deviation for all overall political competitiveness is that the number closer to zero, it is more competitive. So District 4 and District 5 are looking to be more competitive. Are there any questions in regards to the final map 1? Okay.
Yes, I do have just one other question, and perhaps this might even be for my colleagues more than anything else. In looking at map 1, I guess we've got to figure out a little bit about those 5 precincts, what we do, so forth and so on. But I also see in District 2, Precinct 192, just west of Powers, which looks like a flag precinct on the map. And then a pretty narrow section of District 4 down in the south. It's pretty obvious where that is. And I think to the right, which is in District 2, is 636 and 648. So there may have been a reason for this, and I would be interested in understanding it. But I'll tell you what leaps out at me is the possibility of putting 192 into 4, and the possibility of putting 636. Oh, actually, so I would have to go the other way. Yeah, no, never mind. You know what? Yeah, you'd have to put them all into 4, and that doesn't work.
Yep.
Yeah. So maybe there was a reason for 636 and 648. It makes District 4 pretty narrow in one spot.
Right.
Commissioner Geithner.
So I'll reserve kind of my direction on where I'd like to see this map go for that item, but I will just say, kind of for some clarification, there was some translation lost somewhere in the direction on this map, because the original numbers that I submitted, that I believe we were in Fountain when those were submitted, I'm not certain on the date, but there was a specific list of precinct numbers, but there was some flexibility given. And so somewhere there are a couple of things that didn't make it in that I think probably should have made it in. And so that really became apparent to me on last Thursday evening, when it came up that those 30 were not together. And so beginning to look at that, I see where that has happened, but I'm not completely certain where my intent, was not clear, or something happened in that process. So I'd like to try to get this back on track. In terms of narrowness and 192, I can probably say it's a population situation. When I was trying to get in all of the southeast precincts into one place, then you end up having to try and say anything that wasn't in those 30 needs to be moved over somewhere else. And I think that's partially where that came from. But again, I'll try and get more specific later. And then, to be quite frank, seeing all this information together on these final maps is super helpful, but I will certainly not be able to digest it all in this quick presentation. So I will take some time before our Friday meeting to really come up with and I'll go back and compare those notes that were also from those other meetings to see if I can get it back into what the hopeful intent was of that.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner. I appreciate that. And my apologies for kind of continuing to ask questions here, but it is time to be asking a lot of questions, because we don't have a lot of meetings left, and we've really got to, get down to an end state here.
And Commissioner Vanderwerf, I will confirm that most likely, just looking at sheer numbers of population of that particular precinct, it is one of our largest precincts at over 3,000.
Yep.
3,000 voters there.
You're talking about 4?
190.
192. Got it. I'm
Precinct
sorry.
192.
Yeah. So it's
Highly
it has a
populous, up
big
to
swing,
twice as
no matter where
many
you put it.
as some of the other precincts.
Yeah. Thank you. If you could just reiterate for me once again, it was on a previous map page. I don't know if you need to go to it, but there were the 5 precincts identified in the 30 that are not in 4 on this map. And what I want to do is just write them down.
There you go, Commissioner.
180.
Well, and if I could sit there and also
Oh, yeah, I have it on this.
echo Commissioner
here. I have it
Geithner's
in here.
comments. You're absolutely right, Commissioner. As we were sitting here beginning this process, we were sitting here re-listening to the audio, watching the video to make sure we tried to capture everything that was shared with us. And this is where it led us to come up with the commission form of sitting there, you know, as far as precincts moved, things like that. So.
Yeah, thank you. Got it.
Got it.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thanks for pointing that out.
Okay, so now moving on to the Zukas-Waller-Martinez map. And again, this was the Zukas version 1. We are now calling this the final proposed map 2. Change 1 was moving United States Air Force Academy to Commissioner District 1. And then change 2 is combined precinct moves from both maps. So as we sit there and we talk about the 30 suggested precincts consolidated into one district, this map does meet that. And is Fountain, Fort Carson, Security, Whitefield, Hanover together? It is. Here is a PDF copy of that map. The final proposed map 2, when we look at the overall range and deviation, we're at 3.64%. Total precincts moved are 59, so it's 18.26%. Total affected population, 18.43%. Total effective active voters, 17.77%. Here is a breakdown of our target deviation. So we're looking at, again, building up Commissioner Districts 3 and 5. Here are the precincts moved, what has been added, deleted, and the impact to each Commissioner District. Our first criteria, looking at population equality in the Voter Right Act. Here is a breakdown of Hispanic, Latino, Black, White, Caucasian, and Asian. And here's those statistics. So what we were seeing in Commissioner District 2, we're seeing a decrease of 3.53% Hispanic or Latino, an increase of 4.88% White, Caucasian. In District 4, we're seeing a decrease of 2.99% Hispanic or Latino and an increase of 3.71% White Caucasian. In District 5, we're seeing an increase of 6.86% Hispanic or Latino and a decrease of 9.25% White Caucasian. Here's the voting age population. And here's the breakdown of the voting age population for the first criteria. District 2, we're seeing an increase of 3.71% White Caucasian. District 4, an increase of 3.07% White Caucasian. And then in District 5, an increase of 4.12% Hispanic or Latino and a decrease of 8.19% White Caucasian. Continuing with the second criteria, here's a breakdown of the cities and towns and municipalities and also our military installations for communities of interest. Our school districts, and the precincts that have been outlined, the 30 precincts. So all 30 precincts defined as Southeast Colorado Springs are within Commissioner District 5. The third criteria, political competitiveness. So we're looking at U.S. President. United States Senate. Colorado Governor. Secretary of State. Clerk and Recorder. Lastly, El Paso County Sheriff. And here is a summation of the average deviation of all the races. So in District 1, we're seeing 24.24% leaning Republican. District 2, 29.55% leaning Republican. District 3, 3.33% leaning Democrat. District 4, 11.96% leaning Republican. And in District 5, 6.98% leaning Democrat. As I mentioned, is closer to zero, is more competitive. Are there any questions on the final map 2, which is a culmination of the Zukas version 1 and the Waller-Martinez map? Okay. Moving forward, this is map based on the original map 10, so we're now calling this the final proposed map 3. The first change was precinct 169 added to Commissioner District 5, all Southeast Colorado Springs precincts in one district. The second change is precincts 145, 242, 251 moved to adjust for overall population. So the final proposed map 3 is all 30 suggested precincts within Southeast Colorado Springs into one district. They are, and is Fountain, Fort Carson, Security, Whitefield, Hanover together, and they are. Here's that PDF version of the map. And in compliance with House Bill 21-1047, the overall range and deviation is 3.69%. Total precincts moved is 51, which is 15.78%. Total affected population is 15.95%. Total effective active voters is 14.77%. As you see here, here's the target deviation, where we've built up 1, 3, and 5. Here are the precincts added, the precincts deleted, and total impact for each district. On to our first criteria, the Population Equality and the Voter Right Act. So here is the total for Hispanic or Latino, Black, White, Caucasian, and Asian. Here's the breakdown. So what we are seeing is an increase of 3.12% White Caucasian in District 2, an increase of 3.78% White Caucasian in District 4, an increase of 6.5% Hispanic or Latino in District 5, and a decrease of 8.9% White Caucasian. On to our voting age population. Here are the statistics for that. And on to the statistics. Districts 4, we're seeing an increase of 3.18% White Caucasian. And in District 5, an increase of 3.9% Hispanic or Latino, and a decrease of 8% White Caucasian. On to the second criteria, looking at communities of interest and compactness. Here's what we're looking at in regards to our municipalities and our cities and towns, of where they reside within each commissioner district, and also our military installations. Our school districts, and also the 30 Southeast precincts that have been defined. All 30 precincts are within Commissioner District 5. The third criteria, political competitiveness, here is United States President, U.S. Senate, Governor, Secretary of State, Clerk and Recorder, County Sheriff, and here is the average deviation of all races. District 1, we're seeing 27.67% leaning Republican. District 2, 25.16% leaning Republican. District 3 is 3.33% leaning Democrat. District 4, 11.99% leaning Republican. And then finally, District 5, 5.82% leaning Democrat. And again, as mentioned, closer to 0 is more competitive. Are there any questions on this map?
Any questions on map 3?
Okay, map based on original map 4, which Commissioner, you got absolutely right at the beginning, is now we are calling this final proposed map 4. Change, we added precincts 169, 190, 615 to District 5. So taking a look here on final proposed map 4, all 30 suggested precincts in the Southeast are in one commissioner district, and Fountain, Fort Carson, Security, Whitefield, Hanover are together. Here's the PDF copy of that map. In compliance with House Bill 21-1047, the overall deviation is 3.09%. Total precincts moved, 51, which is 15.78%. Our total affected population from this map is 15.8%, and total effective active voters is 14.7%. Here's the breakdown of the target deviation. a breakdown of the precinct moves, what precincts have been added, precincts deleted, and the impact for each district. On to our first criteria, population equality in the Voter Right Act. Here is the data for total population for each commissioner district for Hispanic or Latino, Black, White, Caucasian, and Asian. And here's the summary of statistics. District 2, we're seeing a decrease of 3.21% Hispanic or Latino and an increase of 4.08% White, Caucasian. In District 4, we're seeing an increase of 3.48% White Caucasian. District 5, we're seeing an increase of 6.64% Hispanic or Latino and a decrease of 9.17% White Caucasian. Now moving on to the voting age population for map 4. Here is all the data. And here is a summary of that data. So District 5, we're seeing an increase of 4.01% Hispanic or Latino and a decrease of 8.17% White Caucasian. On to our second criteria, which is communities of interest and compactness. Here are municipalities, our cities and towns, and also our 5 military installations. Our 17 school districts, and all 30 precincts defined as Southeast are in Commissioner District 5. Our third criteria, political competitiveness. Here is United States President, U.S. Senate, Colorado Governor, Secretary of State, Clerk and Recorder, County Sheriff, and here's the average deviation of all races. District 1, 27.29% lean Republican. District 2, 26.18% leaning Republican. District 3, 3.81% leaning Democrat. District 4, 12.34% leaning Republican. And then finally, District 5, 6.77% leading Democrat. And as I've shared with the other 3 maps, closer to 0 is more competitive. Are there any questions on map 4?
Any questions? Hearing none.
Okay, so here, the last one we have is map based on the original map 7, which was the Vanderwerf map. We went ahead and worked this up. So the 30 suggested precincts consolidated into one district. As of now, they are not. However, Fountain, Fort Carson, Security, Whitefield, Hanover are together. Here is a printout of that map that was proposed July 6th. Overall range and deviation is 4.97%. Total precincts moved 50, which is 15.47%. Total affected population is 16.86%. And total affected active voters, 16.39%. In compliance with House Bill 1047, here's a breakdown of the target deviation. The precincts moved, what has been added, deleted, and the impact to each commissioner district. And moving on to our first criteria, population equality and Voter Right Act. Here is the data for total population based on this map. And here is a summary of that. So in District 2, we're seeing an increase of 3.54% White Caucasian. District 4, an increase of 3.47% White Caucasian. District 5, we're seeing an increase of 5.47% Hispanic or Latino and a decrease of 6.97% White Caucasian. Moving on to voting age population, here is the summary of that for each commissioner district. And here are the statistics. District 5, an increase of 3.3% Hispanic or Latino, a decrease of 5.76% White Caucasian. The second criteria, communities of interest and compactness. Again, going through our municipalities and our military installations. Our school districts. And right now, we are only seeing 3 precincts that are not within Commissioner District 5 of the 30 precincts defined as Southeast Colorado Springs. They are Precinct 169, 601, and 605. Moving on to the third criteria, political competitiveness. There's U.S. President, U.S. Senate, Colorado Governor, Secretary of State, Clerk and Recorder, County Sheriff. Here's the breakdown of average deviation of all races. District 1, 28.03% leaning Republican. District 2, 28.06% leaning Republican. District 3, 5.62% leaning Republican. District 4, 14.87% leaning Republican. District 5, 8.24% leaning Democrat. And again, closer to zero is more competitive. Are there any questions on Commissioner Vanderwerf map?
Any questions?
That is the end of my presentation, Commissioners.
Thank you. And that brings us to now item number 4.
Item number 4, public comment. 4A, the Redistricting Commission will afford up to 3 minutes for public comments addressing suggestions on specific maps and proposed changes to those maps or other comments related to Commissioner redistricting.
Are there any members of the public wishing to speak today? If so, please come down. Make sure you have signed in if you haven't already, and your 3 minutes can begin. Is there anyone here to speak today?
So my name is Catherine Chukas. I live in District 3 in Northwest Colorado Springs. I didn't bring my computer down, but if you have questions for me that I need to get my computer, I hope you'll allow me to do that. My questions or my comments today are about a discussion I hope to hear in agenda items 5 and 6. As a part of those agenda items, I know you're going to be filling out these forms, these commission direction forms. I like how they're made available with photocopies for us immediately. Please continue to do this rather than verbal instructions. If we get a photocopy now, we can then write a comment into the portal before Friday morning's meeting because we know what the changes are as well. When we hear things verbally, then we have to do what the staff has to do, which is listen to the audio that doesn't come available for 24 hours. And then you're not going to get these comments in time. So please fill out these forms. I'd like you to be precise when you're filling out those forms and use the title of the maps. I think that's where this misunderstanding happened, Commissioner Geithner, is you actually wanted these edits to map 9, not map 8. So maybe you just want to use this form again, but add in precincts 180 and 190 and say that the changes need to be to map 9. And I think then maybe your wishes are taken care of. But I think you started with map 8 accidentally verbally, and that's where this all got mislaid on final map 1. I'm going to get to my edits for 3 final maps in a minute, but I do want to let you know as a reminder to what Attorney Hodges said last meeting, commissioners can go back to any maps and make edits to them. So a map like map 3 or map D or the Perez map could be edited by any of you using this form. You can go about doing that. I think the public comments in the written and the redistricting website are extremely valuable to read. Given the sunshine laws for the Redistricting Commission, I'd like to hear more discussion about the 7/31/23 letter submitted by Naomi Lopez. Commissioner Gonzalez, you said it was okay to hurt your feelings. I got that your feelings were hurt by that letter, but there's a lot of really good analysis in there, again, by political scientists, and it has to do with the voting rights law that you may be subject to. So please take a look at that. Again, it's thorough analysis using data that's from September 2020. Of course, in November 2021, our county re-precincted, but the analysis is still valid because it's the same count of residents in September 2020. I especially like you to look at the last sentence of the conclusions. There's going to be various options for meeting the Voter Rights Act. But if you should ask the staff to look into this. But the illustration they provide is similar to the Perez map. And now for a comment on my specific maps. I have one precinct move for final map number 3. If you'd like this form, I'm happy to give it to you. I have 2 precinct moves for final map number 4. I have a couple precinct maps moves for final map number 2, really to unite the Harrison School District, which was the intent, it seemed to be the intention of the Waller-Martinez map. And I don't think that's happened with final map number 2. So I've got a form about that if you want to fill that out. And I really tried with final map number 1. It's kind of like that children's book, If You Gave the Mouse a Cookie. You'll see on final map number 1, precincts 112 and 119. they're still not with the rest of Old Colorado City and the West Side. I don't think that's what you intended originally. I created a form of give a mouse a cookie to move 112 and 119 back in, but that's more challenging, so it actually moves a lot of things. Again, if you guys would like these pieces of paper, so you go to your meetings and make copies and you do your edits, I'm fine doing that. I get it, that my time is cut off. I'm sorry, and I'm happy to address any other questions you have.
Thank you very much. I would like to request that we receive copies of those so that we can digest it and discuss it publicly as well.
Okay, and I don't have any copies. Those are my only originals because I had to write them 15 minutes beforehand because that's the first time I could see everything.
We will make sure that we all get copies and there are enough available in the audience as well before we get to the direction portion.
And one other comment, if I could make this, it's just going to make Friday easier, is you should have public comment after agenda item number 6 on Friday. Otherwise, you're going to wait till next Tuesday for me to give you comments on questions and edits you're making. And I think you would benefit from hearing comments from people like me and others clarifying things like, did you mean map 8 or map 9 on Friday afternoon, rather than waiting till next Tuesday? Thank you.
Commissioner Geithner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to kind of put it on the record for especially those who maybe have not attended every one of these meetings, that as we're hearing about the short timelines and just getting maps at the meeting and then making it difficult to respond to those, that is required by the Colorado law. I know that is very frustrating. It has been a frustration for us as well, that we are all seeing these maps at the same time, and then we are trying to discuss them, and it does take some time to digest, but then by then we have some additional changes. So I understand that frustration is there. I think we are trying to accommodate that to the very best of our ability by providing lots of copies, but understand we cannot give it to you earlier. We don't see it earlier either. We see it at the same time that you do today and at every one of these meetings, and that is a requirement by Colorado law. So I just wanted to make that clear.
I would like to use Chairman's prerogative to ask a clarifying question on your last statement there, if you would. Sorry to have you come back down. You had a suggestion that public comment, where in the agenda would you like to see it prior to direction?
So after your direction, I think it's called agenda item number 6. Again, it's just copied and pasted for next meeting. Is that I think you want the ability for the public to ask you, maybe even just yes, no questions, saying, Commissioner so-and-so, it looks like what you're trying to do is move this such that this is happening. Is that true? And you say, no, that was a mistake. I didn't really mean that. You know, it doesn't have to be a lot of back and forth, but I think you want yes, no's. That's what happened with map 8 and the form last time, is that this was not clear to staff. It was not clear to anybody in the public what maps Commissioner Geithner wanted edits to. So it was clarified verbally saying, did you mean map 8, Commissioner Geithner? And she said yes. And I think she didn't mean that.
Okay.
Okay, and so I think if we had all had a longer conversation, we would have been able to get this, and the staff wouldn't have had to do all this work on map 1 that it seems like you guys are not satisfied with at all for final map 1. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think we'll add that to our list of things to consider for direction towards the end of this meeting. Okay, and discuss. Are there any other members of the public wishing to comment on any of the specific maps that have been presented today? Hearing none in the audience? Okay, are there any online? Okay. We will move on to item number 5.
Item number 5, Redistricting Commission members publicly deliberate regarding any individual ideas and/or present any individual maps to other redistricting members and to members of the public.
And actually, at this point, I think let's take a brief recess to give time for those copies that are being made right now, and we'll take a quick break and come back after that. Commissioner Vanderwerf. It sounds like Commissioner Vanderwerf has also filled out the form and would like copies to be made during this break as well. None of us have seen that yet, and he will present it and we will discuss it when copies are made. We're in recess. And we will call this meeting back to order. I believe that the items that we are about to discuss are also being handed out to the audience. And just for clarification, we are on item number 5, where we will discuss potential things and give direction to staff. So these sheets that you see in front of you, this is an important piece. These sheets that you see in front of you have not been discussed and turned into direction for staff yet. It is what we will use as a guide for the discussion from various members. Okay, with that, we are on item number 5. Let's go ahead and read that back into the record again, if you don't mind.
Item number 5, redistricting commission members publicly deliberate regarding any individual ideas and/or present any individual maps to other redistricting members and to members of the public.
Okay, who would like to kick this discussion off? Commissioner Williams.
So I wanted to state on final map 1, and I don't even know if these edits will accommodate it. I'm really feeling strongly about keeping Fountain Fort Carson with Fountain. And I don't know where the town limits of Fountain are. I have to pull up that map on the clerk's website, but I think I'm unsure if the portion next to precinct 807 might actually be in Fountain Fort, or in the town of Fountain. So without moving the whole darn precinct over, which is a whopping 6,000 to 8,000 voters, you have split a city, which is one of our, we want to keep areas with urban interests together. So that's just my comment there. On that one, that's the first comment I'll make, and I'll go through them as I find others. But I will look at my computer to see if that's in Fountain or not.
Commissioner Geithner.
I just want to get some clarification. You're saying that which precinct is you believe is part of Fountain?
I'm sorry. I thought it was 800, but it might be, is it 801? The big, huge one. 801, and see how there's a little portion that kind of goes east of I-25?
Yeah. Okay.
So
I just wanted to clarify that's what the precinct number was for my notes.
Yeah, I'm sorry. The numbers are getting smaller as we get.
So as we move forward to make it easy on everybody, is I'm having Carl put up the static map, and we could do the overlays if we want to put a municipality overlay of the precincts, things like that. So that way you can go ahead and see that.
That would be helpful. Then I don't have to pull up the clerk and recorder's website and dig down into the maps. Thank you.
Commissioner Vanderwerf.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. So I did submit a new map, and you had reserved a space for map number 5, the Vanderwerf map. So what I'd like to do is enter this for the record for the Vanderwerf map number 5. Now, let me tell you about what I was able to do with the map and what I was not able to do with the map, because it doesn't meet all of our criteria yet. The initial intent of it was to try to build a map that met as much of the criteria as possible while keeping Carson in District 4. So I was working on trying to achieve that. That turns out to be a pretty difficult thing by doing that and also trying to keep all of the 30 precincts in the Southeast whole. And I think all of us are realizing the difficulty of that. So what I was able to do was move Carson and the precincts that are north of Carson here back into 4. And this was an attempt to put the Southeast into 4 as well. But I was not able to get all of the Southeast precincts into 4 in that map. So when you build that map and we show it 2 days from now, you'll see, I believe, 10 of the 30 precincts are not in District 4. And we're going to have to figure out what to do about that, one way or another. But the funny thing about it is in all of the other criteria, in the total numbers criteria, that's a good map. And in the political competitiveness criteria, that's a good map. And also in the compactness criteria, that's a good map. It's just missing the 10 precincts. And the precincts that are not in 4 that are on that map are on the northern side. So 190 and 180 and I think 184, 193, 194, those are not. So, but you'll see it. When you build the map, you'll see the ones, but it's the ones on the north side that were defined as the southeast that don't fit into that. So I just wanted to go through that explanation about what this input is, and I think it'll be a deliberation for the next round and see if there's any insights in that map that could be a benefit. Now, I just have one last comment. It's presently called the Vanderwerf map, but how about we just call it map 5 for Friday, if that's okay? So we'll have map 1 through map 5.
Absolutely.
Okay. So that was the input that I did. That's what I've got for the moment. I may have some more comments to follow up on some other things, but that's what I've got for the moment, Madam Chair.
And to clarify, this form you suggested, you would like to see map 5 amended with these changes?
Yes. Well, so there is no map in, well, okay, let me make sure I understand that. Right now, there's the map 5 or the fifth map, which is identified as the Vanderwerf map. I thought it was just preserved as space and it wasn't referring back to any previous map. Is that correct?
We left your original one in consideration. You can, at this point, any member of the commission at any time can propose any brand new one. Or you can use this form to make it easier to see changes.
I appreciate that clarification. So a lot of these maps are actually pretty similar. So let me just back up a little bit. So what I just mentioned, this input that I've got here today, which I did, between the NACO National Convention and now, it starts with the map 8 original map. That's where it starts from. And then it backs out of some of those changes and makes some other changes. So that's where it actually started from. So it's a modification off of map 8. It's not a modification off of the original Vanderwerf map.
Okay. So to clarify, we have, original map 8, but final map 1 also, I believe, incorporates many of the changes that are on this, and that was also made originally from map 8. So, Commissioner Vanderwerf, would you mind if staff takes a moment to go from what we have on the table right now as Commissioner District 1 and see what or as final map 1 that was presented today, and see what your changes to that one are, because I think that will be the minimal change. It all came from the original source of map 8.
That may be possible, except on this map that I'm proposing here, it puts Carson back into District 4.
Can I?
Commissioner Geithner.
So I understand we're trying to get to consolidation here, because I am still making and would like to make changes to map 1. If we take these changes, then I think we have to have kind of 2 separate in this area. Otherwise, those things are going to converge and start competing with each other. I would ask Commissioner Vanderwerf if you feel strongly about keeping the old Vanderwerf map in, or perhaps we could remove that map and make this 5, and then we still have 5.
That, I think, was the operative question that originally came from Commissioner Bremer's comment.
Well,
am I asking to put into map 5 a derivation of map 8 or keep the original Vanderwerf map? And I didn't think about that. So give me a few minutes to think about it, and then I'll come back and I'll mention what I would have a preference for.
And to clarify, though, this form was based off of the original map
Map
8.
8. In
That's
fact, Commissioners, I do have map 8 pulled up for you. This is the original map 8. And as you know, I shared a couple days ago, is I know statute says we have to bring forward 3 final maps, but I know many of us agreed is if we go above the statute, as we usually do, is I would highly recommend 5. So Commissioner, if we're looking at the changes you propose here, we can call that map 5, based the changes off the original map 8, which is right here before you.
I think let's, in thinking about it further, let's go ahead and do that. This proposal I have today, let's make it map 5. It is a derivation off of map 8 and taking Carson and putting it back into District 4. It violates the 30 precinct rule, so that's still an issue to work with on that. But why don't we go ahead and proceed with that?
Okay.
And what that means is the current preserved 5th map called the Vanderwerf map, I will recommend we discard.
Got it.
So, and assuming my fellow commissioners are comfortable with that?
Madam Chair, if I could just interrupt briefly. I think that we actually did motions and voting on this last time. That'd be my recommendation this time through as well.
Thank you. I was getting to that, and let's, so to clarify, I need a motion that the new final map number 5 will be, according to this sheet right here that was just distributed and presented by Commissioner Vanderwerf, working off of the original map 8 with these proposed changes. Its name will be final map 5. And will be presented with all of the same data that we saw through all of these other maps, analyzed at our next meeting on Friday. Can I get that in a motion?
I would like to make that motion, and I can reiterate it if you'd like, but you said it well yourself, so I'd like to make a motion on the comments that you made, Madam Chair.
I'll second.
Okay. Commissioner Williams,
Aye.
Commissioner Vanderwerf,
Aye.
Commissioner Gonzalez,
Aye.
Commissioner Geithner,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. Thank you. Commissioner Williams.
I'm sorry. I was texting someone not related to this meeting. Could you tell me how many maps did you want us to go into the final day with, 3 or 5?
So Commissioner, I would recommend 5.
Okay. Thank you.
I think you said the statute has 3, but
Yep,
5 meets the 3 requirement.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So Commissioner, talking about, did you want to pull up final map 1 with the city overlay to look at Fountain?
Yes, please. Then I can finally get it in my mind. Okay, so the city overlay is the darker green.
Right. So as you can see there by the table, is the dark green is the city boundary for the city of Fountain.
Okay, and then
It's a lot of Swiss cheese down there.
it is. Is there something on the opposite side of precinct 800 on the left side of your screen? It's, okay, that's not Swiss cheese anymore. Got
Nope.
it. Okay. So it goes all the way over to precinct 805.
Yep, but if you go up Highway 8587, is as you can see up here in precinct 613,
That's the,
that's the city of Fountain. So that there, if I'm correct, that is the Walmart right there, is it not, Commissioner Gonzalez?
Yeah.
Yep. So they went ahead and annexed that portion right there, which is the west side of 8587.
And that's actually part of precinct 810. It's not part of precinct 813, if you look
That is
carefully.
correct.
okay.
But I don't believe there are any voters there because I think that was just that flagpole annexation
Yep.
of the Walmart. Yeah.
Yep.
So it's kind of a very interesting scenario there, as we all know and have heard much about over the years.
Commissioner, they really like that commercial value right there. So,
All right, thank you for that.
Commissioner Geithner.
So I just have a little bit of direction, and I know this one's a little confusing because of all that. I appreciate the citizen trying to detangle what happened there, but I have to disagree. I don't think that was what my intent was. I think that we missed something further back in the process. I do not think it was about this last meeting. However, the direction to the best I can give it, and I will come prepared on Friday for more clarity as needed. I just don't have time to break it all down, as you know, by precinct today. But the intent is to take map 1. If you could refer back to that original direction, which was the list of precincts before the precinct move form that I did email and was posted for everyone to see. I would ask you to go back and use that as the guidance there. I believe that had all 30, so we want to get all 30 back into map 1. And to make that happen, I would just ask that you use that as your best guidance, because somehow we got off from that. And then I will very specifically look at what that direction was, where we ended up with your discretion, and which ones I feel like need to be moved, and be prepared for that on Friday. But I'll let you guys give your best guess at how to do that between now and Friday, so we're not losing that time. And I apologize for not being clear, and appreciate your help in trying to get this one back on track.
That's okay, Commissioner. Like we've all mentioned several times, this is a brand new process and we are learning as we go. And like I said, I feel we're doing a very good job.
I appreciate that. And just for some additional comments on this, I'm fully aware, and I would love to get Fountain and Fort Carson together. I know my colleague is very passionate about that, as are many of the people here. But as Commissioner Vanderwerf mentioned, it's just a numbers game, and it is very difficult. I've spent many hours trying to figure out how to do that as well, and keep the Southeast whole and keep those things together. I am going to continue to preserve this map, because though I understand that that is a priority, some priorities are going to have to fall off. And I like the idea of having different maps. You know, they all tend to start looking a little bit the same. And I like the idea of preserving something separate so that we can see what we're losing on some of those other maps as well, for the continued discussion. Whether or not that continues to be a map that I support when we get to the end is another question. But I do really believe it's important, because, as I have pointed out, we're going to lose somewhere, and I want to make sure that we are really paying attention, especially to that eastern side. When I talked a lot about the statute as related to communities of interest and how the votes of this specific board affect them, all of those questions, I want to continue to have the real discussions about what those communities of interest are, and what communities of interest might be missing out that will truly be affected by many of these votes. So it's not as I've said, it is certainly not ideal, but those numbers, as I mentioned before, I think I added up all of the population. It's 21,000 in that Fort Carson area, plus that huge chunk. It is just a very difficult math problem, so I just want to keep preserving that, but understand that it's got its shortcomings, as well as every map will, because there just isn't a perfect solution. Thank you.
Any other comments, direction? Commissioner Gonzalez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just comments on the couple of maps, looking through all of them. I think the changes, I appreciate the staffs with all the updated changes from last time. I think gave us all good maps. I know there's a little bit maybe not fully understood the one map that didn't get all of the district southeast together, but majority, I mean, we're talking about just 5. Excellent job of trying to get it as we can. One of the things, although it is the last of the types of criteria, is the competitiveness, which you mentioned. Closer to 0 is more competitive. Map 1 shows very strong competitiveness. The draft, I know we still, Commissioner Geithner still wants additional changes, but 1 and 3 actually, I think, show that the best. Again, that's third criteria, fourth criteria, further down. So I appreciate 1 and 3 for that, although I like all the maps in general. Again, I just personally, as District 4 that wants to have Fountain, Fort Carson, I just need a map that has that together as part of District 4. Again, I'm not going to say don't look at map 1 and any changes to map 1, but again, I'm now looking at the maps that make sense. I look forward to seeing the Commissioner Vanderwerf revised map, but of the maps, 1 and 3 in terms of competitiveness looked very good to me. So I'd like to see maybe more variations of map 3 because that generally does all what we've been asking to do, as do just about all these maps, but does so in a way that shows that competitive races. And I appreciate your doing that again and making it a more consolidated area. So again, appreciate map 1, but I'm going to have to need Fort Carson, I believe, for my residents and constituents to be a part of District 4. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Commissioner Williams.
I do have a comment. So I took your recommendations. This is what happens when you work late. From the last meeting and attempted to combine the Commissioner Vanderwerf map 7 with the Commissioner Williams map 4, which would split up the west side. When I got to the end, I accidentally erased, I saved it and it was time to come to this meeting and then it got erased. But the reason why I'm not submitting it is I suspect it does put all of School District 49 together and then adds in some Norwood, which is just south of Woodman Road by Powers. But what it did in order to do that was take the Calhoun School District, which is 501, I think 502 and 503, and some of the Peyton School District. And so in looking at how I printed out the map at the end, my suspicion is I know Commissioner Geithner well enough that she would not want to do that. So I'm not going to submit it unless, she's, is interested in that. But I thought, no, she's not going to like that. But it did get most of School District 49 together, but it takes Commissioner 4 and just wraps it all up into Calhoun. So it didn't look like something I felt that could pass this board's tests that we've set aside so far.
So if I understand correctly, no formal action or recommendations for
No, I
changes?
think we have maps we can work with. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Vanderwerf.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to just to make sure that I understand it, and it's not necessarily where we are on any of the maps, but maybe we are. I'd like to kind of know between Commissioner Geithner and Commissioner Williams, what do you think is the best delineation for Black Forest? If we're trying to keep Black Forest whole, where is that line based on precinct numbers? And maybe that's hard to answer. I don't know.
It is a little hard to answer, and I'd love to hear Commissioner Williams' answer to it as well. But 219 is currently in Commissioner District 2. I believe 219 fits better as part of that Black Forest community. And I believe it is also 441. I think those are the two that are currently missing. And I will say one of the things that's really helpful for this, and of course, those precinct boundaries make it a little bit difficult, but if you are in that Esri tool and you pull up the map background that is, I can't remember which one is like a satellite view, you can see where the trees are very easily, and that helps you really identify where those precincts are, and that is helpful in trying that. But those are the two off the top of my head that I believe are currently separated, that I think ideally it would be good if they were combined. Now you can see obviously 441, and I say obviously, but I know that many people may not realize that those 4s are primarily in the School District 49, and then you have the 2s there that are in School District 20. And so one of the things that happens when you want to put together Black Forest is you end up taking a precinct out of District 49 and putting it over. And that's just the reality of where those school districts meet. It's a very strange way that they meet, but considering the law around political subdivisions, and that if you are going to divide those things, you need to have a reason. A community of interest is a good reason, because that, I think, overrides importance of the school district when we have to prioritize things. And so that's 441 is one of those ones that I think makes a lot of sense. It's very difficult because 444, as you can see there, I mean, that is, you know, roughly considered Falcon. As we know, there's no boundary for Falcon. It's an area that's just referred to. 442 is much more dense. It's a little hard to see from this map, so it's a little hard to tell. 444 is a little more rural. But I think, and you can see it goes all the way up to Burgess Road. So there's part of that northern part that I think also could be considered part of Black Forest. And with 441 there, but that's roughly, and Commissioner Williams may have some different thoughts and opinions there, but those are the ones that I would specifically mention.
Would both of you consider, if you go further north there, I appreciate those comments, but going further north, 440 and 457, would you consider those to be Black Forest area? They're north of 441.
I think I would leave, yes, I would leave those connected to that area. Again, it's that situation where you see you have 322, that is actually School District 38, the Monument School District. So those, you see all three of those school districts converge right there, but that truly is right in that kind of Black Forest area. And then I will say it does get a little confusing because that Black Forest almost kind of comes down to some extent and then continues into a treat area called Peyton Pines. But I would say those folks consider themselves Peyton Pines as very separate, even though it kind of geographically does almost flow together. I would keep those separate. So when you're looking at that treed map, if you see Peyton Pines, know that that is generally not considered. It's not really part of Black Forest, but the trees don't. There's not a huge break there. It just kind of thins out, and then anyway.
Yeah,
thank you.
and Commissioner, Peyton Pines and also the Homestead Ranch Regional Park is right here in precinct 524.
Okay.
So you're absolutely right, where it just comes down from precincts 457 and 440 into 524.
Yeah, and if you've been to Homestead, again, that's the thing is, it is the Eastern Plains, but up in that northern area, starting from, again, Peyton is not a town officially recognized, but just kind of starting from there and moving up, you do get a little bit of that treed area as well. But I would still consider that, and I think the residents consider that separately, even though like Homestead Park, if you have been to Homestead Park, there's a lot of trees there. So it is a little misleading, but that would be my understanding from my experiences and talking to residents there.
So,
I appreciate it. Yes, Commissioner.
and I would define it exactly what Commissioner Greitner said. 219 on the south side, I believe, in the south side of that precinct is becoming Sterling Ranch. So it's becoming much more highly developed. But the corner of 219 and 218 is Shoup and Milam Road, which is the heart of Black Forest. And so I was surprised when I lost that precinct a few years ago because it's just right there in the heart of Black Forest. And I will say, I find the Chukas map interesting, but I didn't like the division on Highway 83, although that separates out Black Forest because we have a lot of forested place right there around Fox Run Park. I would have to say precinct 318, just to the precinct 316, if the fire had jumped over Highway 83, Woodmore might have gone the same way as Black Forest. So there's a lot of woo-wee zone up in there that needs a lot of wildfire mitigation. So we were lucky it didn't jump Highway 83. So, but they're different. One is Woodmore area and Kings Deer and the area around Roller Coaster Road, and then the other is Black Forest.
Well, and commissioners, sadly, in my former office when I worked the Black Forest Fire back in 2013, is how the residents up there define Black Forest. They have trees.
Yeah, that's probably true.
I guess I do have one more question. Thank you, Madam Chair. So, you know, in the process of really getting down and getting to a fine level of refinement on all of these things, it's kind of a separate question. But, you know, there are some weird tag-looking things for certain kinds of precincts. And that's perhaps a discussion for a different day. But I think we've talked about one of those, and that's 801, that small little section. It's a Carson area that actually goes to the east side of I-25. And yeah, actually, if you go a little further south, and if you see, now you see where 807 is and 801 is, you'll see there's a little bit right there, exactly, that's east of I-25. And while it looked like from your city overlay that Fountain had not annexed that little area, therefore we don't have a city violation if 801 were no longer to be, you know, we'd have other challenges maybe, but not a city violation if 801 ends up in a district other than 4. But I just want to ask the question, is that something that could be later fixed and just change the 801 precinct line to right along the highway and maybe put the remainder in 807 or maybe make a new precinct or do something with it, just because, you know, we have these weird little situations like this?
Well, and Commissioner, that is a great question. And yes, that is part of a re-precincting process. And with our growth, we're probably going to be looking at that. But right now, at this time, right before a general election, wouldn't be advisable. But it's probably something my office will definitely be looking at because of populations within some of these precincts. Going back to what Commissioner Geithner was talking about, some of these precincts are above 3,000 in total population, and we're going to have to re-precinct down the road after our general election.
So after the general election, thank you.
Yeah, well, and Commissioner, if we were to sit there and re-precinct right now, I believe our parties would be extremely upset with the clerk and recorder's office. Yep. Yep.
To get that on the record, precincting is done in a whole separate process as proposed by the clerk and recorder, and the next one will be after the in 2024, and will be a whole separate set of action items for a different board. And okay, with that, Commissioner Vanderwerf, were those questions to an end that had some direction that you would still like to?
Oh, I just wanted to have a conversation with the clerk and recorder with regard to some of these kind of weirdly shaped precincts, but I had no specific direction for this redistricting process.
Mr. Purcell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the commission's edification, we took commissioner direction form submitted from Commissioner Vanderwerf. We inserted the population numbers based off of the spreadsheet and then compared those with map 8, the original map 8. Just wanted to pause for a second because there may be something that we're missing because the population deviation is a little bit over 11,000 votes, and to be within 5%, the deviation totals needs to be within about 7,000 votes. And so we wanted to proffer that maybe we could pause for a moment and look at what Commissioner Vanderwerf was looking at to see if maybe there was something that needed to be added to the form that wasn't captured, or maybe if our math was wrong or something like that, because as it looks now, it would not meet the 5% deviation standards.
Commissioner Vanderwerf.
Well, I didn't have that problem when I did the map, and I have the map on Esri, but I didn't publish it because that's not part of the process we're supposed to follow here. I'm supposed to use this form, so I wonder if I missed a movement of a precinct that, you know, could have been a couple thousand on both sides.
And maybe we missed something either, but then that way, if it's appropriate for us to to try to see if that's something that we can see as the issue in this meeting that will allow us to come better prepared in the Friday meeting with the analysis.
Yes, I would like to not have the clerk and recorder and staff go through the analysis process if it's not where we intended for it to be. Is this something that could perhaps be resolved by looking at it all together on a screen, and you're perhaps being able to quickly visually identify whether there was a large precinct that was in the wrong spot? I think we had talked about whether that was an allowable piece of the process early on. Can I get our county attorney to weigh in on our options?
Yeah, and just for the record, the question was, can it be submitted on the Esri tool? Because I know the submit button has been shut down. So.
Thanks.
Madam Chair, I think there are a couple of issues with submitting additional maps on the Esri tool, unless we were to do something maybe in the open meeting. First issue is that the two constitutional amendments that governed state congressional districts, state legislative council provided direction to that redistricting commission that that the actual redistricting commissioners were not allowed to use the Esri tool for that purpose. I realize that that's probably more persuasive of authority than really direct case law or something along those lines. The other issue, it would seem to me, is if we open it back up, I'm not sure if that's going to cause an operational delay from the folks to my left here.
So taking a look at that, of course, we went ahead and turned off the submit button. One of the thoughts that just was discussed up here and is the ability to sit there and submit the shapefile out onto the public page. So when you sit there and you build a map, you should be able to generate a shapefile. And so by putting it out there on the public website, everybody will be able to download that shapefile, and we can put it into our toolbox and work from there.
Sorry.
And, you know, it's always dangerous to banter around ideas in public. But I might recommend if Commissioner Vanderwerf has the ability to access the file that he created from his computer here, we could go into a recess and allow him to print that. We can make copies of that, transmit that to members of the audience, and maybe while we continue on with the discussion, staff back in the meeting can look to see if there's anything obvious that we're seeing as a discrepancy that might explain the math. Primarily, it'd be helpful for us to see the final numbers that Esri produced for Commissioner Vanderwerf. And if it's, you know, if we're so lucky, it might be as simple as, oh, it happens to coincide with the population of one precinct, and then we can look and see if that precinct is an orphan or not. Otherwise, we can dig in further. But with that map along with this form, this commission may also be able to give us direction to try to marry the two between now and Friday if we can't identify the discrepancy in this meeting.
Okay.
Madam Chair, I do believe that approach works. My suggestion was going to be to do something while we're on the record in this meeting.
I would agree. I know Commissioner Geithner has a quick comment as well. I know that this is a really messy process, but making meatloaf and getting the proper composition is. And we're called to do this in a public setting. It'll be a little bit messy, wonky, but I think I would like to walk out of here today with confirmation that what Commissioner Vanderwerf intended is what will then utilize staff time to be analyzed. Any other comments? Commissioner Geithner? Okay, let's take a brief recess, and to clarify, that will be for Commissioner Vanderwerf to try to pull up his map, and we will do our best to distribute that in the easiest way we can, and most efficient, quick way. Thank you. Recess. Good afternoon, and we are calling the August 2nd Board of County Commissioners Redistricting Commission meeting back to order. We were in discussions on item number 5.
Madam Chair, if I may explain for the sake of transparency and anybody that may be watching online, what's going to happen next. And again, as a recap, Some of the figures that we're contemplating under potential direction from Commissioner Vanderwerf weren't matching. And so since we only have so many of these meetings left, we want to try to rectify that today. Now, the law does give us certain guardrails as to what can or cannot be done in session. So anybody that likes C-SPAN and Food Network is in for a treat because they're going to see political sausage made in real time here. So now that we are back in session, Commissioner Vanderwerf is going to transmit the shape file for the map that he created in Esri to redistricting staff, who will immediately translate that shape file into a map in Esri in this meeting for everybody to see. So from there, I want to turn it over to Carl and Commissioner Vanderwerf to go through this sequence of events in the public meeting.
Commissioner Vanderwerf.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. So I am ready as a matter of public record, the way the Esri tool works, for many that may know, you can take an existing map and then you can do a bunch of modifications off of it, and then you can store that in your own internal file on the Esri tool, and that is in fact what I did. So I do have a record of that, and what I'm able to do at this point is I've made a zip file of a file called map8 modified that is on my the separate file area for the maps that I was creating. And I also have made a PNG file, which is an image file to show what the map looks like from an image point of view. And what I can do is I can forward these now. I'm going to forward them to Mr. Carl Nordstrom, who is at the podium right now. And this will be the zip file and the PNG file. And he is then going to take those files and do what he needs to do in the Esri tool to get them up and displayed, as I understand. And part of the reason for this process, for doing it this way, another way I could have done this would actually have just been posted it publicly, but on advice of legal counsel, he recommends this approach. So this is the approach that we're going to take. So if there's no objection, I'm going to press the send button and send the shape file and PNG file to Mr. Nordstrom. So here we go. So that is sent, and it'll be hopefully not very long before you receive it. And it was important to do this because after taking the manual precinct moves off of the direction form, in going through the process, their total population numbers for each district did not match what the Esri tool was showing me for the map I made on the Esri tool. And what that means is somewhere along the way, either I mistranscribed a precinct or they mistranscribed my list. And somewhere in there, we had an error of some type. So what we're doing is we're working to fix that error. Mr. Nordstrom, do you have it up yet?
I do not. Canceled meeting from my boss, Steven Schleicher.
What I'm going to do is just confirm that it was in fact sent.
Does it go directly to the public-facing site?
It'll enter my email, and then I was going to download it and then enter it into the, put both of those files onto our meeting for today on the Google Drive that everyone has access to. That way anybody could pull up the image of the map if anybody is using any GIS software, they can utilize the shapefile to import that. So it won't be immediate, but I'll have to move that onto these items. Once I've downloaded it, then I'll be able to come into the tool here and import using a shapefile. Excuse me. So I'll be able to.
Okay,
be able to do that
while
in real
we
time.
are waiting on that, and if we need to maybe get IT and make sure it doesn't get caught in Mimecast, which is a potential, and a large file share issue, we can see if we can work that out. In the meantime, are any other commissioners, do you have any other thoughts, analysis, or anything that needs to be said under item number 5, waiting for this final map presentation? Okay. Do we have it up yet? Okay.
Not yet.
Another brief recess, please. Okay, thank you for your patience. It is pretty marvelous that we can do most things in real time, very close to real time. Okay, I will call this meeting back to order. We are, in summary, pulling up a map that Commissioner Vanderwerf has presented that will be imported into the Esri tool, and we will have that for discussion as soon as we see it. Again, trying to identify the discrepancies between what he originally intended and what staff was able to pull up, so that by the time these are fully presented with all the data and analysis at our next meeting, which is Friday, it will be as intended.
Okay, those files have been uploaded to the Google Drive, so they are readily available to the public. I will import it into the tool now.
So for the record, as we're pulling this up, it is live on the on the tool on the public-facing website now so that anyone following along with their computer will be able to see.
Commissioners, that is correct.
Okay, thank you.
And Madam Chair, if I could do for just a moment. Thank you. So there was clearly either my a failure for me to identify a precinct or two, or in the transmission of what I submitted as the precinct moves, that somehow got missed, because if you look at the totals on the bottom, which are the total population numbers between District 1 and District 5, we most definitely do not have a difference of 11,000. So something got messed up in the translation. So this does look like the map that I did work on, and I see some obvious things to identify here. For example, if I recall right, Precinct 219, which was being called part of Black Forest, I actually have in District 2, but this will be a map to work from going to the next meeting. And for the benefit of my fellow commissioners and the public, you'll notice one little cutout off of Powers. That was one of the other things, contemplating. You'll see this 167. I had to do that to make the population numbers work, and I was tinkering with which precinct there to the west of Powers would allow me to do that. And then if you would scroll down, thank you, you'll notice that I do not have all of the precincts in the list of 30 in the right place. So District 4, the horizontal line towards the bottom is kind of the bottom edge of those 30. And I have, 625 up to 620 on the east side. And then on the west side, I have from 610 down through 631 is in District 4, but not all of the precincts north of that are in there. And that was one of the issues I still had with it. I was able to include Fort Carson in here and keep Fountain and Security Widefield whole. But I think the map is illustrative in that it does illustrate the challenge of trying to do this and put it in District 4 while keeping Carson whole. And what I'm talking about is put all of Southeast, the 30 precincts of the Southeast, into District 4. It was exceedingly hard to do. And then if you look up here on the top, Precinct 318, we've had this discussion before. I did leave it as it was. The western half of 318 is city jurisdiction of Monument, and the eastern half is the county park, Fox Run. And that's, problematic. But it does make all of Monument whole in District 3, should we have an interest in going down that path. So that's just a quick explanation, but this is the proper map that I put a lot of time into trying to figure out how to make get Fort Carson combined with Fountain, and then include the Southeast in 4, and it was hard to do.
So just reviewing this really quick, Commissioner, I'm looking at the direction form that you provided to myself and my staff and to the public. It looks like the precinct moves that you are requesting have already been done on this map.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So what I had done was transcribed the precinct moves from the map onto the form.
Got it.
And either I missed something, or when these were taken from the manual form and put back in, something got missed there.
So I think that at this point, what we're looking at here is what Commissioner Vanderwerf intends to be fully analyzed and brought back to us at Friday's meeting. I think that will require an amendment to the previous action or another motion.
Well, based on council's advice, I'm willing to amend my previous motion or make a new motion, if needed.
Madam Chair, I think Commissioner Vanderwerf could actually amend the existing motion to clarify the moves that he just went through.
Okay, very good. Madam Chair, I'd like to amend my previous motion to identify the Esri map that is currently on display and make that map number 5 for consideration 2 days from now. And this is a modification to the previous motion where we were using the commission direction form as the source data for the motion. But somewhere along the way, there's some error on the commission direction form that is preventing us from getting to the proper map. So the proper map is on display, and this motion is to have this map that is on display identified as map 5.
Second.
So procedurally, we will vote to accept the motion first and then come back and vote again fully on the direction. Commissioner Williams, Commissioner Vanderwerf,
Aye.
Commissioner Gonzalez,
Aye.
Commissioner Geithner,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. And am I correct, Mr. County Attorney, that we now need to vote again? Okay, that was for the amendment. And now the overall motion is that this map is presented on screen and imported into both the publicly facing tool and the Esri tool is the one to be considered for analysis. Can you hear a motion?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate my colleague's willingness to accept the amendment to the previous motion. And now let's proceed with that motion. And that motion, just as a reiteration, is to include the map that's on the screen that's in the Esri tool and declare it as map number 5 for consideration at our next redistricting meeting.
Commissioner Williams,
Aye.
Commissioner Vanderwerf,
Aye.
Commissioner Gonzalez,
Aye.
Commissioner Geithner,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. That passes 5-0. Is direction clear?
Absolutely, Commissioner.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion? A map has been presented and we have done one item of direction, but officially let's move to item number 6.
Item number 6, redistricting commission members provide consensus direction to staff.
Is there any further direction? Commissioner Williams?
So based upon Ms. Chukas's page 2, not page 1. So on the final map number 2, which is the map that Ms. Chukas proposed as well as the Waller-Martinez map combined, she has asked that we move precincts 602, 603, 604, 606, and 613 from Commissioner District 4 to Commissioner District 5.
Commissioner Geithner?
I would just say that I'm not comfortable without taking a little more time to look at the map. I appreciate the very specific precinct moves, but I have not time to completely digest what those moves are and why and whether I agree with those moves. So I personally would prefer to wait until Friday to give us a chance to really look at what all of these different things are doing before we vote on that tonight. That's my personal preference.
Yes, I was actually hoping to get them in there so the analysis would be done, but I can pull up the map and look at it at home. So that's fine.
What were the numbers again, please?
It was 602, 604, 606, 613, and 603, I guess. I didn't read that right.
And Commissioner Gonzalez, this may be obvious, but those are the precincts immediately north of South Academy.
Commissioner Geithner?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I will just say, just for clarification, if that is of an interest to Commissioner Williams and it doesn't, the only thing that I don't want to see is we haven't really had a chance to digest these and then have a lot of moves before we're able to do that. That's one of the things that I want to do tomorrow before our Friday meeting. If we could preserve the current map without And I think that's what we're talking about, making changes to a map, which means that we won't see that again in the same form on Friday, which is where I'm a little concerned. But if we wanted to have, since we already have the current information and we wanted to have a new one on Friday that included that just so that we could get that analysis, I'm okay with that. I just don't want to abandon the map that we got today before we've really had time to take a look and digest. That's my only concern.
And Madam Chair? Yeah, thank you. So I would concur with Commissioner Geithner's comments. Here's the challenge that I have. I appreciate Commissioner Williams wanting to, do that analysis. But if we move those precincts, this is what will always happen, right? If we move 5 precincts from one district to another, we'll most likely end up with a population imbalance. And then that'll require moving other precincts in order to accommodate that population imbalance. And we'll go down a rabbit trail of a whole bunch of changes. I think it might be better to keep final map 2 as it is for the moment. What I would like to do is I'll go to the Esri tool. As soon as the staff can post final map 2 on the Esri tool and the other final maps identified as map 1 through map 5, I'm going to start tinkering with all of them and see if I can figure out a way to improve on them and meet find a better way to meet all of the criteria. But if we make just these moves, we'll most likely have an imbalance between 2 districts.
Well, and Commissioner, just to give you a visual, so the 5 precincts that's being asked to be moved here are the precincts that are east of 115, west of I-25, and just north of Fort Carson. So it comes into a diamond, and those are the 5 precincts that going from Commissioner District 4 into Commissioner District 5.
And to clarify, I think all of us taking the time to be in this data and analyze it is incredibly important. I do think that is also what a member of the public has done already by being attentive and listening to the direction, doing her own maps, and then coming up with these tweaks to that. So, I'm just going to put that out there that this analysis has actually already been done by someone who is studying it. Now, I think it's beholden and our responsibility to do that as well. What I will say is at first glance, and I believe that some of these changes are probably coming from Commissioner Geithner at our next meeting, as she's indicated. But I will say, for example, this is, the top, the third one on this final map 1 sheet from the citizen. The third one was already done, but that was my first glance at map 1. I also identified the things that she has listed on this, and I think honestly she listed these things based on hearing our input throughout, which was my strong preference is to not have District 5 extend to west of I-25. That's the first 2 she's identified. And then that southeast stay whole. That's a couple of the other precincts listed. So I think what we're going to end up with is probably going to take many, if not all of these considerations, at least to map 1 that were submitted by the citizen, but we still have pending one that Commissioner Geithner wanted to correct, and I think that is what is attempted to be done here too. So it would be much easier for us to see that on Friday's meeting. Is that the plan, Commissioner Geithner, that you were going to come back with those?
That is absolutely the plan, is to come back with those. I just want to clarify, though, I think Commissioner Williams was just asking about, were you just asking about map 2? Or were you asking about all of the?
No, I was only asking about map 2, but we can wait on those.
Okay.
We'll run our own numbers.
But to Commissioner Vanderwerf's point, I just kind of went through the population numbers on this, and we're probably about a 10,000 population move with those. And so it would definitely take moves in multiple areas. The original form, while I really appreciate the suggestions, and this gives us something to look at going into this, the form that we are giving direction on has specific kind of guidance at the top, which is if you move 5,000, if you move a precinct that has 5,000 from 3 to 1, you must also find something to move to offset that. And that's how we get to balance. And without that, having this here, this is going to give us an imbalanced map. So I think it's better for us to digest this, look at some of these precincts and figure out and give more specific direction next time so we don't end up with an imbalance moving forward. But I really do appreciate the very specific suggestions.
I do too.
So I will withdraw the motion. I have one more question, though.
Commissioner Williams.
And since I can't currently talk to election staff except in public, Precinct 445, which is above Woodman Road and just to the east of Powers, you come left. It's in pink, and it's pink hashed on the map you have out. Bring your mouse. Well, it's by Volmer Road, so you're way too far east. But I will just mention this to staff because Precinct 455 is showing on the Academy School District 20 map as being in Academy District 20, which means it should be numbered with a 2. And Precinct 253 is showing that it should be in Academy District 49, which means it should be numbered with a 4. And that's really confusing to us election geeks on that. I don't know if that's something you want to change after December 2024, but I thought I'd mention it now
Absolutely.
because that's the first time I'd ever noticed it.
Yeah, when we sit there and we do the overlays of the cities, towns, and the school districts.
Yeah.
So absolutely, Commissioner.
Never even noticed that in 4 years. So thank you. That's it for me.
Commissioner Gonzalez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So just on the clarifying, on the request to change those districts, those precincts were not considered some of the within the 30. Is that correct, of the southeast population?
That's right.
So they were not. Okay, just want to clarify that. Wasn't sure. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Is there any more business or direction to be had? Okay, I will quickly summarize. We have a new map, final map 5, which is the one proposed by Commissioner Vanderwerf via the ESRI tool. We have Commissioner Geithner, who made comments about hers not aligning with the direction. It is her intent to come back to Friday's meeting with the specifics on that and a side-by-side comparison. But that will remain final map 1 with some changes expected as she explores that. Any further direction? Okay. Our next Redistricting Commission meeting will be on Friday, August 4th at 9 a.m. Did I get that correct? Excellent. With that, we are adjourned. Thank you.